Welcome to the Tangent Gentleman, where each week Scott and I start with a topic from the previous episode. Then we see where the conversation takes us. Along the way, there'll be questions, ideas, and disagreements that spark tangents. Our buddy Chris is keeping track of those tangents, and that one of those tangents will become next week's discussion topic. And our topic this week is generations, i.e. Gen X, baby boomer, so on.
Alphas, whatever. We'll see.
Yeah.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing good.
That's good to hear.
I went all the way back to the greatest generation.
So did I. Yeah.
I don't know if I ever heard of that. You know, last week we talked about, what was it, Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard that. And I hadn't
heard that either.
And the one and babies being born right now are Gen Beta.
Right. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah, I'd heard of the greatest generation. You probably saw this too. The greatest generation. From what I read, and that it came about kind of as a result of a book by Tom Brokaw, the newspaper or the TV announcer guy.
Yeah.
He wrote a book about basically that group of people that won World War II, that were integral in winning World War II. And that's why he coined the phrase, they were the greatest generation.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I found as far as that people attributed that name. I found that. Did you get into any of that about where the name, what they were and why they got named?
No,
Did they
not
make
really.
sense?
No.
Because like the one I always knew about was the baby boomers.
Yeah.
Like why they were called the baby boomers, right? Because of the post-war, right?
Yeah.
And then
so actually, talk about that a little bit. Is it what, because of economic expansion or
was that
booming population or
the booming population
Okay.
and also economic expansion?
Okay.
They were the largest. Yeah, they were the largest rate of population growth in the U.S. like ever up until 1964, which is kind of where the cutoff line is.
Yeah.
Because after 1964, the rate dropped below, I can't remember how, I want to say 4 million being born a year from like whenever where I found it started was 46 to 64. So is that what you had?
Yeah. And that was interesting too, because you can find some different numbers depending on where you look on some of these. Yeah.
The thing that I found interesting is the article the first article I read said the generation is defined as a 20 years time span, blah, blah, blah. And then when I looked at them, I'm like, well, that's 26 years or that's 15 years. Like, which one of these is 20 years? I guess technically the boomers are according to, so did you,
Yeah,
I found 40, so 18 years.
Yeah, 18, yeah. So we're both Gen X. We're at the beginning of Gen X, right? You're right. You're right on line.
I'm officially Gen X. Yeah.
Yeah. You were born in 65. I was born in 67. So we're both at the early Gen X.
Yeah. So when were your parents born? That was a curious thing for me.
So my parents were both born in 47, I think, maybe 48.
So your parents are boomers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
What about yours?
They were both dead in the middle of the silent. My parents were born in the 30s, 31 and 34. So,
oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another one I found, the silent generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you see this language talking about the lost generation?
For another name for Gen X, right?
No, that was for the people that around World War One. So like kind of the end of the greatest generation.
Oh, okay. No, what I saw was I saw one place that Gen X was called the forgotten generation. Did you come across that?
I didn't come across that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I didn't write that down, but I think that Gen X has also been called the forgotten generation.
So the one thing I found in general, or I found this reference in a lot of places, that this is all just some kind of construct. It's not like absolute real. And the one thing I was listening to, they made the case that it's really marketing. It's ad agencies and marketing that created these groupings, because they said it was the idea that we want to appeal to consumers by saying, hey, if you're in this group, the most popular car in this group is a Honda Accord or whatever. So that's what all the, Gen Xers are driving.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that became a marketing thing that that as it progressed, like pretty much from Gen X on, the labeling was the thing I read attributed it to marketing firms.
Okay.
Like they would create these labels to identify their target audiences for products, which I thought was really interesting. I'd never really heard that before. So
I'm just trying to think and like compare it to other groupings. So obviously generations are groupings by the year you were born, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, how much does that contribute or factor into a person's character or whatever we're looking at? That what?
Right.
I mean,
one idea I had, because we were talking about on the gray area, like technically I'm Gen X, but I feel like I'm a boomer because I'm the youngest of 5 and was raised by, in that household with those influences. But I also feel like the whole idea about Louisville, is Louisville a Midwestern city or a Southern city?
Yeah.
Because I think, to your point about what group are you in and how do you identify with that group, that's always something I've always wrestled with. Because at times I feel very Midwestern,
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the longest time, I was, sad to say, I was embarrassed of like the whole Kentucky Southern thing, because like the Southern stereotypes or Kentucky stereotypes of being, hillbillies or whatever. But then as I got older, I came to realize, there's a lot of cultural richness in being from the South.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That kind of seems to be washed away in the generic Midwestern. But then again, people from the Midwest have their things too, I mean, I love, we talked about road trips before. That's one thing. I love regional food items. Like, when you go on road trips and you're like, oh, like in Indiana, it's a pork tenderloin sandwich. Have you ever had one of those?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like a pork chop pounded down and breaded and fried.
Yeah.
That's like in Indiana. Apparently. So, and I always heard that Louisville is like some of the most fried fish sandwiches. Louisville's like fried fish sandwich capital.
Oh, really?
Which I always, thought was interesting. I mean, a friend of mine's dad started Moby Dick, the restaurant Moby Dick, which, I mean, obviously
really?
that's a Louisville thing. Yeah.
I like a Moby Dick fish sandwich.
I do too.
Yeah.
I love a fish sandwich. I guess, I don't know if that's, I mean, obviously you weren't raised Catholic, but for me, it was very much a Catholic thing.
Well, one of the things I started thinking about going through this, like, I just started thinking so we're grouping people by age, but if you look within those groups, how similar are the changes people make as you age going to be the same? Well, man, when I just said that, I was trying to figure out if that made sense in my head. But
so you're saying like when a boomer becomes 40.
Is it going to be the same as when a millennial becomes 40? Is there going to be a lot of the same traits, Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And I actually found a study, and it was about the politics by generation. And it exactly bore out what you said. Yeah. Like when you look at the ages of people and their transitions to do they consider themselves more conservative or more liberal, or it pretty much, I mean, obviously it maxes out because of the boomers got to be the oldest.
Yeah.
But you started to see the trends that when people turned 40, the percentages were more reflective of the previous generation when they turned 40. Yeah. So it's very consistent with what you're proposing.
Yeah.
Or supportive of what you're proposing. That it really does make it's not really necessarily when you started, it's if you get there. And when you get there, you think a certain way,
Yeah.
So,
but there are obviously there's things that happened, big events that happened during certain generations. But I'm just curious, as you started looking at the different generations, which generation do you think had it best in adulthood? Did you think about that at all?
I would say probably the boomers.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I
to a
came
certain
to.
extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, they obviously experienced war. I mean, they had Vietnam and Korea.
Yeah.
But they were young. They were kids when Korea happened. So Vietnam was obviously happening in their life. But they had a lot of economic prosperity.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you think about a lot of manufacturing jobs, affordable housing,
right.
Pensions, a lot of employer pensions, employer health care. I think it was much easier to raise a family on one income at that time. There was just a lot of economic benefit during that time.
Right.
I think boomers were probably extremely hard workers, but as later on, I think in later generations, when you look at it, I think the same amount of work might not give the same return that it gave to boomers.
Oh, I think that's very true.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think one thing I got to thinking about, because one thing I was reading was talking about how the millennials, so they were born in 81 to 96, which, by the way, according to my research, is the largest group. 4% of U.S. citizens are millennials, which is now the largest group of by generation.
Yeah.
So,
and millennials, interesting. This might be an interesting fact to throw in here. During our careers in education, we probably dealt mostly with millennials. Is that right? If I'm doing the math right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were born in 96, you graduated from high school in 2014.
Yep.
So,
and if you're born in 81, you graduate in what? 99?
98. 99, yeah. 99, yeah. So that's we covered a lot of that. And then obviously a decent amount of Gen Z, because that would have been 2010. So they haven't graduated yet. But the one thing to your point about economic prosperity and opportunity, I was thinking about this. When did it, because they were saying about the millennials, they were of an age that they experienced 9/11. Like that was prominent in their youngish life, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I was reading and the thought I was having is that's also kind of the beginning of the sort of the global disillusionment. Like the sense of things are not great, and I don't know that things are going to get better. And there was just this continuous reminder globally, this reminder of that.
Well, I mean, I guess you wouldn't, you would look at security a little differently after 9/11. I mean, I think we all did,
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, and also being so close to millennials, working in schools with them for years and years and years, and watching, keeping up with some after they graduate and go to college. I kind of, you had the boomers, and we come in as Gen X. I still think things were going pretty strong for Gen X, wouldn't you think, as far as economically?
Yeah, you did start to see sort of a breakdown of the kind of the nuclear family idea,
Yeah, really high divorce rates.
Yeah, right.
That's when you start hearing about the latchkey kids.
Right.
Two family, two working parents, kids coming home from school by themselves.
So this is a funny aside. So we watched the movie E.T. last night. We watched this. Several of us have seen the Steven Spielberg movie Disclosure Day, which was about aliens and whatever. And there's a pretty substantial disagreement amongst my son and I about whether it's a good movie or not.
E.T.?
Apparently, no, Disclosure Day.
Oh, Disclosure Day. Okay.
Movie. Yeah. And apparently that divide, this was part of the conversation that came up yesterday with my son and his both my sons and then my one son's girlfriend, who's obviously Gen X. Or what is she? She's Gen Z.
Gen Z,
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. But there's this division. Like boomers and Gen Xers like this Disclosure Day.
Okay.
Because it's nostalgic and it's Steven Spielberg and it's a summer blockbuster movie. Whereas the younger people are like, yeah, it's silly. It like takes itself way too seriously. Nobody would really believe that. Very cynical. Very and it was just fascinating. So we were having this conversation about movies, and are good movies all the time, or are they only good like at their moment? And so like one of the things that came up was the movie Jaws, which I think is one of the greatest movies of all times as far as like summer blockbuster.
You're a Spielberg fan, man.
I am a Spielberg fan. But just the idea, like when I think about what a movie is, it should be exciting, it should be fun, it should give me a glimpse of something that's, you know, I can't ever really experience, or I don't ever really want to experience. And my sons are like, yeah, Jaws is good, but it wouldn't be good if it came out now.
Well, of course not. I mean, it's like any old movie you go back and look at.
See, I disagree with that argument. I think one of my favorite movies is The Godfather. Came out in 1972. You know?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, you're not talking about as much like special effects and things as you do with Jaws. I mean, I'm sure Jaws special effects looks ridiculous to young people.
but you watch. I mean, I watched it fairly recently. It's not that bad. It's really not that bad because again, shout out Spielberg. He does an amazing job of just shooting enough of that shark to make you think it looks real. You know, that's what a 30-foot great white would look like.
I think nostalgia is getting you there.
You might be true. But anyway, so to your point about what I said about the family and you said about the latchkey kids. So we watch E.T. and there is a scene in E.T. where the mom has to go to school to pick up her middle son, Elliot.
Yeah.
And she leaves the little girl, played by Drew Barrymore, as like a 5-year-old at home by herself. It says, Gertie, I'll be right back.
Don't turn on the stove.
Just thinking, that is a generational thing, which in my research, you probably came across the same thing. The rise of the helicopter parent came about, you know, and that's generational. I mean, that's very much people that Gen Z, when they became parents, they became proverbial helicopter parents.
So let me ask you this, because I always found...
I guess millennials did, actually, not Gen Z. But
I always got a little not aggravated, but I found it interesting, and I felt like I was always coming to, try to support millennials. But do you think boomers and Gen X typically have a negative opinion of millennials?
I hear that a lot.
Yeah,
and I personally think it's a no. I don't like it. I don't agree.
I don't either. I don't either because we worked closely with millennials. You know, we knew millennials very well and very, very closely. But I think I got to thinking about that with millennials. But another thing that I think that impacted them was they were right in the middle of like the housing bust, house costs were rapidly increasing. Mortgages were easy to get, balloon loans, and I guess you could almost call it predatory lending. You could call it predatory. Predatory lending, and not only in the housing, and then you had the Great Recession. A lot of people foreclosed on their houses, and it's probably still continuing today. Why a lot of people are, more cautious when they go into owning a home. And then you also had, and this is, I think we were partly responsible for that. I think we oversold college. We were pushing everybody to college. College costs had boomed for millennials, and they were having to take on college debt. Again, that's another predatory lending thing. You know, no way a 17 or 18-year-old kid coming out of high school ought to be able to string together $50,000 of debt to go to school.
Right.
So they were experiencing all of this, all of this debt, and really, I mean, wages definitely wasn't keeping up with it. I was looking at here's an interesting fact that for me personally, I started college at University of Louisville in 1986. Annual tuition, in-state tuition at that time in 1986 was $1,300 a year.
Wow, a year, yeah,
a year, yeah. And because I found a receipt and some old files when we were moving, where it was like $655 for a semester for me to go full time. Yeah. But you could pay for that with a part-time job. So I was looking at this in 1986. Minimum wage was $3.35, and U of L's tuition was $1,300. I just looked up U of L's tuition now, and it's over $13,000. So it's gone up over 10 times.
Yep.
So to keep up with tuition, minimum wage would now need to be $33.50, and I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
I don't think that's the case. I think it's still around $7 or something.
So buying power has just gone down tremendously, you know, and I think a lot of times I don't think boomers and Gen Xers understand that when they're thinking about, younger people today.
Well, one thing I found interesting, and it's really in line with this money thing, and I couldn't find enough data to support it, like, absolutely, but I'm pretty sure this is true. Gen X and millennials report as being some of the most they self-identify as some of the most socially aware, and there were some things that they really did that when you look at like the overall popular support for gay marriage and social awareness in terms of racial issues, and there definitely is an increase in the awareness, and the people who like consider themselves conservative. Like I did a whole thing on political alignments, and let me just find this one specific thing. 60% of Gen Zs and millennials who identify as conservative or in this particular study with Republicans, they think that the institutions need significant change, but the elected people are the ones who need to be held accountable. So there's this whole idea of like, we need to recognize that individual people are individuals and they need to be respected, but they also need to have a sense of accountability. So they just generally report this better sense of awareness of individuals and who individuals are, so which is just, I think historically that's kind of sort of a hippie liberal kind of an idea, that you have humanity, you have individual, I need to respect that. Yeah. But curiously enough, that same swath of people, I think, the facts, they do align with it chronologically. I can't say they necessarily are the ones that do it. They are the ones who have spearheaded the rise of our current economy, which is largely driven by private equity firms, which are the idea of money making money. Whereas like you talked about before, during the boomer life, you made money by doing a job and made a profit.
Yeah, you got to the point where, there was a point there where wages didn't keep up, but return on investment started accelerating. So if you had money and you had it invested, you're going to continue to get richer. And if you're working paycheck to paycheck, you're going to struggle more.
Right. Because we are no longer, and I just thought it was really interesting that, I'm making up this label, but if you look at the millennials and the Gen Zs who identify as more enlightened in the big picture sense, they are also kind of the greed generation, because they're the ones that have championed in this idea of, I don't mean to demonize all private equity firms, but private equity are firms that make money out of making money.
Yeah.
They come in and they buy small businesses and they sell them off for parts. And, you talk to I talked to several friends who are in various businesses, various professions, and they tell me, oh yeah, this private equity firm bought our parent company, and now all we have to focus on is how much money do we make? Not do we provide good health care? Not do we make good product? Not do we stand by our product? It's, can we make more, how much money do we make? And I just thought it was really interesting that there was this disconnect between the generation that identifies as being more enlightened and aware, but yet they are the ones who are also are members of their group. I can't say they collectively, because then you start to get into this broad conversation, right? But they are members of a group that are driving the money makes more money. And I don't know. I see a disconnect there, because to me it seems, and maybe this is, the old man in me, it seemed like there was a time when we all agreed that, hey, if you work hard, you deserve to be rewarded, and you should have a certain degree of comfort. Like you said, you should be able to buy a home. You should be able to provide for your family. You should be able to, pursue other careers or other, advance your standing, go to college, go to trade school, study a craft, or a trade. And I don't know that that's true anymore. And I find it like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to attribute to the generation, because I think there is, one thing, I don't know if you see this, your kids are a little older than mine, but there is a real sense of nihilism and negativity with the 20-year-olds that I know. Not really negativity. It's like the world is a screwed up place and it won't really matter what we do. And that's pretty sad to me as an old guy who's the world should be a good place.
Well, I thought about that some too, because I think it's real easy. If you look at things objectively, you could say right now is the best time to ever be alive. I think.
Using certain indices, I agree.
Yeah. People are living longer, medical care is pretty daggone amazing, violence is down regardless of what you see on social media and the news. You're less likely to die in a war, you're less likely to be murdered, you're less likely to die in a car wreck, all these things. You've got information everywhere. You can learn just about anything for free now. If you want to learn how to play the guitar, you can do it. You can find lessons for free. If you want to learn how to speak Spanish, if you want to fix your LG dryer that was made in 1970, you can find a YouTube video. There's a lot of good things going on. There's a lot more choice, and what people can do nowadays. If you want to work remotely, if you want to be a songwriter and publish your own songs, or just whatever. There's just a lot of choice. But I do wonder sometimes if people are less happy, even though if people are not as happy today. So one of the things I was thinking about before we came on. All right, so my parents bought the house that I consider my childhood home, because we were there for the longest and the years I remember the most, in about 1975. And in 1975, I think as humans, we just, keeping up with the Joneses is a thing, whether you want to admit it or not. Right. We all do it. But in 1975, you were looking at your neighbors, you were looking at your friends, you were looking at your coworkers, and that's kind of who, oh man, Scott got this cool new car. Well, we probably ought to look for it at a new car. Yeah. We've had this for 10. And now young people are looking at millions of these highly curated lives on social media.
Yep.
And, you know, the people are putting great effort into making their lives look like the best thing ever with the posts they make. And I know it seems like we've harped on social media a lot, but I just have to believe that that's one of the things that contributes to maybe people living in what you could argue is the best time to ever be alive. I mean, one way of looking at it, and not being happy.
But not seeing it as that.
Yeah, not seeing that.
It was interesting. So when I was looking at the naming of the generations, I can't remember which one. I think it was Gen Alpha. So that would have been 2011 to 2024. So the most recent verse.
Now there's Gen Beta now.
Now it's Gen Beta, but 2011 to 2024 was Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was. I think it was. Someone proposed calling it the Jones generation.
Oh, really?
Because the idea is, to your point, you're keeping up with the Joneses.
Okay. Yeah.
You're aware of all this other, and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. You strive to keep up with the Joneses. Obviously, that didn't stick, but I thought that was interesting. So one thing I want to point out, you talked about this. You alluded to this a little bit. So I did this. I also went down this path of like, how is media used? Because, you know, it's a common thing I hear often when I ask my kids, "What my phone does this and I can't figure out." And they're like, "Well, here, boomer, let me show you." You know, and they fix my phone. And I'm like, "Don't just fix it. Tell me how to do it. I'm not stupid. I just don't know I don't know what to do."
Yeah.
So I started to look into that. How do the generations line up with media? So here's some thought. Here's some things I found. This is terms of where do they get their news and information. Okay, so I'll just run down here.
So hold on, just a second though. With your kids, how old are your sons?
22 and 25.
Okay. They've had maybe not direct access. I don't know how old they were when you allowed them to have a smartphone, but they've been around smartphones their entire life, right?
We didn't let them get phones, so they were in middle school.
But smartphones
13,
were a thing though their whole life. Is that right?
Didn't the iPhone come out in 2005?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so
or from a young age.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, they were aware of them, and people had them that they knew. Mm-hmm. They didn't have them, but they were.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just popped into my head that they're like the smartphone generation.
Yeah, as teenagers on. Yeah, for sure. So, I'll just run down this. Baby boomers identify, they get their information from cable TV news, local TV news, and traditional network TV news.
Today?
This is a study published I think it may have been 2025, but it was pretty current. So, okay. Gen X says they get it from, and this really surprised me, local news, cable news, and then online. I would have thought they would be, and online is like Facebook, TikTok, like that.
Yeah.
Millennials, online and traditional TV news, which really surprised me.
Traditional TV, huh?
Yeah, like CBS, NBC. Yeah.
Okay.
Gen Z, online and traditional TV, same. 65% of baby boomers and Gen X value YouTube because they say it does not push a mainstream narrative or agenda. And I just thought that was really interesting in light of the conversations we've had about how the stream and your feed gets manipulated.
Yeah.
But for 65% of both boomers and Gen X felt like that was a totally independent stream of information.
Yeah. I think I told you before, my daughter, whenever she sits down to watch television or watch a screen, it's almost exclusively YouTube.
Yeah.
But so she might be unique because, that's her business, but
she's a millennial.
She's a millennial. Yeah. Yeah. She's a millennial.
So they identify online sources. So that would be consistent.
You're talking about Jaws. I mean, that's another area where there's just so many more choices. The scarcity abundance thing. I mean, us as Gen X's, we had If it was a good, clear day in the atmosphere, you might get 6 channels if you include PBS.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But your entertainment was scarce. Movies, everything was, and now, gosh, you could, you could watch whatever you want, anytime you want, pretty much. With streaming.
This isn't related to news, but it's related to this idea. I was reading this article the other day, and they were talking about how amazing, how excited people are for the World Cup. And everybody's excited about the World Cup, and the U.S. is doing well in the World Cup, and everybody's excited about the World Cup. And this one person in the article said, because we're back to single TV viewing again. Like worldwide, everybody, I don't know if you watch World Cup today, but you don't watch, well, you said you watch TV sports. You just don't like pro sports. Right?
Yeah.
So Germany lost today to Paraguay, which was huge.
Okay.
Huge upset.
Yeah.
So everybody who's remotely interested in sports, and definitely the soccer world, were shocked. Oh my gosh, Germany lost. And so it's this idea of 3 channels again, or ever must see TV on NBC or whatever, right? Everybody watched Seinfeld on Thursday night. So on Friday at work, everybody was talking about Seinfeld. And this person was making the case that World Cup has brought that back for a short period, which I thought was a really interesting argument. So,
but it kind of goes back that way. I mean, we've talked on here before about how, some people are going back to listening to music on vinyl. And I just heard a story that VHS tapes are making a comeback now. People are starting to go back and wanting to watch movies on VHS tapes.
It's funny, when we were going to watch ET we did watch ET last night, and we're like, I don't know, is it on a streaming? But I'm like, well, I know we have the DVD downstairs. And I said, well, maybe we have it on VHS. See if I can find VCR to play it on. But we did have it on DVD. But so it's
I wondered, has Gen X experienced the most change? I was just thinking, we were talking about VHS and vinyl. I mean, we had very analog childhoods, completely analog.
Oh, yeah, completely analog. Yeah.
And now we're in a totally digital adulthood.
I guess it's relative. I mean, if you look at the boomers, so 46, so you probably had black and white TV, if you had TV at all. Every house had a radio, FDR and the fireside chats were on radio.
Yeah.
So you went from radio in 46, some people TV. Yeah. And you got up to everybody had a TV or a color TV by 64. So that wasn't yeah. I mean, but in their life, I don't know.
I mean, it could be, But the thing that I saw, the reason they started Gen Beta with children being born now is they're expecting AI to be so deeply integrated in their everyday life that we need to start a new generation.
Yeah.
So, so a baby born today, they're expecting AI to be totally embedded in every, nearly everything they do every day. And that got me thinking about schools. Yeah. I mean, gosh, schools have to change. I mean, you think about, at one time memorization was important, and
a sign of intelligence.
Yeah, and researching and knowing where to find information was a skill that you had to develop. You had to know how to go into a card catalog and find the right book, and whatever it might be, and you had to learn how to write your own thoughts and put them together. I mean, that's none of that's really going to be for anybody born today a Gen Beta. The AI is going to be, I do believe it's going to be deeply integrated, and I think it's going to have to get into the schools and be totally personalized education.
The effect of AI, it was really interesting. And I'd read this before, but the 3 people in their 20s that I was talking to yesterday said, they are so anti-AI. And they said it is common amongst their age peers. They just find it disgusting, and they don't want any part of it. They just think it's just this horrible path that we're going down, because it's just, they said, it produces poor quality product, and it's just not good. And it's really interesting, because I tend to agree with them, but then I also think about if we could just have AI for like medical purposes, like informing medical procedures, medical analysis, like the ability to say, we took a picture of your, whatever, abdomen, and we, as it goes now, a radiologist or maybe two looks at it and they say, oh, no problem there. We didn't see anything. But if you had a AI analysis, which is in essence thousands of radiologists looking at it, they might catch that 0.1% of a thing that's really indicative of, some bad news. So,
but I wonder though, with those young people you were talking to, if this is the first major, completely big, turn everything on its head change that they've experienced. Because I think about myself. Okay, I remember when texting first was the thing. I hated texting. I was like, why in the hell would I type something to somebody? I'll just give them a call. That's so stupid. Right. Text. This is never catching on. Nobody's going to text. All you got to do is call them and you talk to them. And I think I wonder if it's something like that with AI to young people now, if it's just such a different way of things being done.
I don't think it was, I didn't get the sense it was a different way. It was more of just the quality of the product.
Well, I mean, yeah. You do have to know what you're getting into with AI right now, and I'm sure it's going to improve, but I think it's going to get big.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're right. Well, I think I was reading an article just this morning about, and it's a concern about the next economic boom, because so many billions of dollars are being spent on AI related things at the expense of other business investments. So the idea of, oh, we should build a factory in our town that makes widgets. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to spend that much money to get a data center.
Yeah.
And so there's no widget factories being built.
Yeah.
And it just said how this article was making the case that this is a dangerous proposition, because this is kind of what happened with the housing boom. Everybody was going to make, money hand over fist in the housing boom, but then it ended up being that there really weren't the houses to do that. And so they lent out a lot of money on something that didn't exist. And are we going to get to that same place with AI? And I'm with you. I don't think AI is going away. I just don't know if it's going to be all things and everything that people indicate it might be. I don't know. One other thing I want to say about, you mentioned about people being critical of the millennials and the Gen Zs. And it's something that, and I think I have this perspective because of a career in education. When people talk about, oh, kids today are so stupid. Kids today don't even know this or don't even know that, and they're just dumb. I always push back on that so much, because I think they live a much more sophisticated life at 12 than I did.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a different kind of intelligence.
Oh, yeah. It's
not the same. They maybe don't know what D-Day is. And I kind of bristle when kids don't know what D-Day is. And I have conversations with people and they're like, I don't know what that means. Or I had a terrible, probably one of my top 3 most professional, disappointing moments in myself was I scolded one of our colleagues one time when I was a teacher. I made some Shakespeare reference and she was an English teacher. She's like, what are you talking about? And I just ripped into her. I was like, you're an English teacher. How do you not get a Shakespeare reference? And my wife was like, that was out of line. You shouldn't have said that. I'm like, she's an English teacher. She should get a Shakespeare reference.
You are an old man.
I am an old man. I was an old man then. I wasn't that old. But it gets at this idea about, I think it's important that you understand cultural references and thoughts and whatever, but I don't think it's necessarily a sign of being stupid if you don't.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, these kids today, they don't know this moment in history, or they don't know what this is in reference to. Yeah, but they do know a lot of other things.
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked. Yeah. And I mean, you got to think. I mean, is it a good or a bad thing? I mean, we talked to one time about Uber Eats, and just convenient services now.
Yeah.
And how important it is to young people now. Like getting food delivered to you. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready to say that it's a bad thing that they choose to spend their money that way.
I'm with you. I'm exactly the same. I think I want to make the case because this is sort of my general financial advice. I give a financial practice that I try to use for myself, and a financial advice I try to give to people who ask me for my advice. Think twice about what you spend your money on.
Yeah.
And can you do it yourself? I mean, Chris will speak to when he comes on the idea of changing my own oil. I don't have to change my own oil anymore.
Yeah.
But I can change my oil and it takes me 25 minutes and it costs me $40 as opposed to paying somebody $100.
But I always wondered too, so wages have definitely not kept up with housing costs.
Any cost.
Wages have definitely not kept up with college costs. Yeah, any cost. So young people are living in a different time. If we could save for a relatively short period of time and get a down payment for a house when we were young. A young person now can't do that on an average wage.
I've very much had this conversation with my son.
So if you know saving money is not going to help you buy a house, it's going to struggle to help you pay for college. You got to spend you make money to spend it. So maybe since I can't do those things, I choose to spend it on a McDonald's $5 McDonald's meal getting sent to me for $25. I don't know. Yeah. It's just different times, different ways of looking at things because circumstances are so different. Right.
Well, and I think this gets into my idea that I mentioned earlier, like this description I had of like sort of this nihilist generation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I got into a heated discussion one time with a good friend of mine about this. When I made it, kids today, they're just complaining about everything. I'm like, if you're 25 right now, your entire life, the U.S. has been involved in military action in another country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about that. Like that, you said, did we have a better life in most of my life from 65 to 1990, we went to war and we were in Vietnam, and then we went to war in Grenada for like a weekend, when I was in the early 80s.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's not true now. And so the idea about, I'm holding out for this or I'm going to do this, first of all, it's not even attainable. Like you said, I mean, the percentage that you have to save for a down payment on a house, a starter home that costs, depends on the market, obviously.
If you can get a mortgage now.
If you can get a mortgage, And so it's really hard to say, you got to believe in the American dream. And I'm very patriotic. I believe in the ideals of this country.
Yeah.
But it's also practicality. When you look at some of it, it's not the same. And I don't know. This is getting really down there. I don't know what to
well, I think we're both saying the same. You just hate to see people think negatively about young people, because it's definitely not the same economically now.
Right. Absolutely not.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Right. To us as Gen Xers and boomers before us, it's just not even close. So it's real easy to say, well, if you wouldn't spend this money on getting that food delivered to your door, you could do this. Right. Well,
you weren't buying $6 Starbucks.
Yeah.
Which I don't buy $6 Starbucks, but
I don't either. But I don't understand it. But
yeah.
You ready to bring Chris in?
Yep. Let's see what he has to say.
All right, come on in, Chris.
He's another old man. He can yell at.
So let's grade this idea of generations. Let's grade this idea of grouping people by the year they were born and by their age.
I tend to think more I research on it, I realized I think it's a pretty dumb idea.
Yeah.
I think it's very arbitrary. and it just doesn't line up.
Yeah, I think people are much more defined by geography, class. I mean, a lot of things than the year you were born.
Yeah,
kind of like astrology.
No, that's not going to be a tangent. We're not going there on that tangent. That's one I'll never have on as a tangent. You know what you guys got me thinking? Because, I usually do more talking than listening. But while I'm doing this side of the job, I have to listen. And so, but you know what defines generations are common experiences. I mean, the birth year sets you together because by age. But when Scott was mentioning, in my lifetime, like the Vietnam War, was pretty much over by the time I was old enough to realize it was even going on.
Yeah.
And then then even like the Persian Gulf War, my freshman year in college was like the happiest thing ever. 50 countries together beating up Saddam out of Kuwait, and it was over, and we didn't lose anybody. Like I never had any of this, but think of how many changes there have been. Because when you guys were talking about the housing industry, see, we're old enough growing up to where most of the time you had a deal. Like the deal was, hey, I'll work here for 30 years and then you'll give me a pension. And that deal is dead.
Yeah.
And I think that's really changed. That'll have an impact on all the generations. And we're probably the last generation, at least our occupation was one of the last occupation with that. So when you think about common experiences, whether it be like what you guys talked about, war, entertainment, technology, trials and tribulations, that's kind of what defines the generation. But yeah, the greatest generation was without a doubt the greatest generation. And I do remember that book. And there's actually a documentary that goes by the decade of that. And it's amazing. It's a great documentary for a history teacher.
Yeah.
But interesting. Y'all had some great tangents today.
Did we?
It's going to be a tough decision. Yeah, it's going to be a tough decision.
All right. So any fact checking, anything you need to, you're the formal social studies teacher. There's a lot of sociology here today.
I do have some that's going to come up as we do some of our tangents. The one thing I will say that I was so disappointed you guys didn't talk about influencers. Come on, man. Like this generation gets like the Gen Zers and the Gen Alphas. Now they're wanting to grow up. They're going to be these influencers. And that's something that I know. That's when I feel like, oh man, get off my lawn, guy. I'm like, you're making money because people watch your TikTok, and that's what you just did. That was your 20-second TikTok, and you're making money, and people are making money with no talent. Now, I'm not talking about Tia. Like that's a different deal. I'm talking about people that wear bikinis. But
see, here's my thing on that. Because I'm getting to more. I understand it more. That the economy of it all. Like I never really understood the economy of it all, but I've tried to learn and understand it. I make the parallel between that and early TV. Because you think about what was on early TV. I mean, it was some of it was just silly. Some of it was just gross, over the top marketing, but some of it was really interesting, and you got to see musicians and artists, and that you watch the Ed Sullivan Show, which, by the way, a great documentary called Mr. Sunday Night about Ed Sullivan. I had no idea what a civil rights pioneer Ed Sullivan was.
Really
fascinating. Because he got into a lot of hot water with the CBS people because he said, I want to put on the best show, which means I want to have the best performers. And so he would go out and find people would say, oh, you need to get Nat King. There's this black singer named Nat King Cole. You need to get Nat King Cole on your show. So he would get Nat King Cole. Well, back in the day, it would be the next segment of the Ed Sullivan Show is brought to you by your local Mercury dealer, right? Well, the Mercury dealers in the South were like, we're not going to do that if a black man's coming on.
Yeah.
And Ed Sullivan said, okay, fine. Then don't sell Mercuries in the South because Nat King Cole's coming on.
That's one thing too, is, you all are talking about the boomers and probably the greatest, easiest, like the money one guy could work and you go on a vacation and you had a house and a car, but it depends because we're three white guys saying that, because I would say a lot of people would not say that the 40s and 50s and early 60s were the greatest time to grow up.
Right. Well, for the greatest generation. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
But,
yeah, I was just saying that's just another perspective.
Yeah, yeah. I was just speaking historically. During that time, wages versus inflation and thing, it was the biggest boom. Another person, Scott, kind of along what you were talking with Ed Sullivan. What, Mr. Rogers, kind of like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because he had the mailman.
Yeah,
the mailman on his show was apparently openly gay, and he had a scene where he had the mailman come and they sat down and they took their shoes off and put their feet in the pool, in the baby pool, and people are like, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't have bare feet next to a gay man." He's like, "It's Doug the mailman," But same idea, yeah. Mm-hmm. And Sesame Street, shout out Sesame Street. They did,
and you got to give it to this generation, the newer generations. They are way more accepting and loving, and people of no matter what your race or decisions you're making, and that's been an example, I think, for a lot of the Gen Xers and even Boomers, maybe.
And I didn't get into the various, but that you're absolutely right, Chris. The study I read about the political thing, the people that identified as like staunch Republicans of the younger generations, like 50, 60, 70% of them were okay with ideas that only 30% of the boomers were okay with. Because they're like, we don't care who you marry. No, that's not an issue for us. And I thought that was I don't know, sort of gave me some hope, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
did we grade?
But so my grade, I'm going to go, I think most of the way that generations are used is pretty bad. I'm going to go D.
Yeah. I don't really see much benefit in it, really. So, other than just putting a label on somebody. So, I'm going to say D.
G. Come on, Chris. Let's make it a trick. Right. Come on.
3 Ds. 3 Ds.
Right, we got double Ds, but we have triple Ds. I don't even know if that exists. But
it's a hat trick. It's the World Cup.
I think,
come on.
So I was doing all the listening here for the last 45 minutes or so. And I went back and forth, like the first thing you said, Scott, was about this is advertising. Obviously, that makes so much sense. And I'm like, that's definitely something that's been contrived. So that part's of you. But the generations and the variations and the changes and the commonalities you have with your generation and the ability to try to relate to the other generations, there's a lot of positives that can come out of just different ages and different experiences. So mine meshed together for a second straight week. I go C.
You're very average.
It can go both ways as generations. But let's get to next week's topic.
Let's do it.
Let's see what you guys pick. I'm going to be interested to see. I'm thumbs up on all four. But the first one, we are educators. We talk about this all the time. So I think it would be awesome to talk about the AI in education, in the teaching and the learning, because I know Brian and Evan probably hate AI, and it worries me too. But I bet they use it. I bet they have to use it.
They don't use it. It's a huge issue.
Bet they will. It's happening. It's kind of like
you got to remember though. You got to remember that they are Scott Snyder's sons.
That is true. That's their only hope.
But they are both. The thing is, which to a certain extent, they both have this was part of the conversation. They both have very arty and art-based creative degrees. Evan has a music degree and a math degree.
Yeah.
He's going to be a teacher, but still, he has a music. And Brian is an architect. Very creative, and they see. Brian shared with me that there was a class he had. There's a professor at UK that they expected students to use AI for part of the class, and Brian's like, I refuse to take that class because I'm not going to do that. And again, will he do that? He's going to graduate school. We'll see 3 years from now. I think the answer is no, he won't do that, but I could be wrong.
I think there's going to be instances. I hope he's not as irrational as you are with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if he's having some medical decision, and they're like, we need to use AI to help with this diagnosis, or you can get this guy here, he'll look at it. I'll take the guy.
He is a more irrational Steelers hater than I am. He's more of a sports hater, but he's also 22. You know, that comes with it.
Yeah, that's true. He just likes to bust people's chops, is what he likes to do.
He does like to do that.
So the teaching and the learning, AI and education.
Okay.
2. All right. So this is the information debate. You know, when my mom and dad were growing up, they basically got their information from the news. My time, you threw in 24/7 news cycle, CNN and Fox News, and now there's always news on all the time. And to where today, my boys, you know, ages 23 to 33, get their information only from YouTube and only from Instagram and only from all social media. Hardly, they're never going to watch 6:30 news. They're not going to turn it on CNN or Fox or MSNBC or any of those. So the information debate. And do we know too much? Do I need to know about every time somebody gets shot in any city in the United States of America? And what is the truth? How do when you hear something, Scott, do you even know if it's true? Do you ever take anything as concrete truth anymore? So the information debate, what is that doing? What's the effect? How did it happen? And then is there any way out of it? Is there any way where we can find truth again, where it's just one thing? I think that would be an interesting topic, the information debate. All right, number 3. Now let me get into it. Movies and TV. Brad was talking about you can stream anything now. Well, here you go. There are 246,000 movies, not shows, movies that cannot be streamed on Netflix, Apple, Max, Hulu, Prime, Paramount, or Peacock. Now, and if you do every streaming service possible on the whole earth, there's still 127,000 movies that have been released to movie theaters that you cannot watch unless you actually have a hard copy of the movie, whether it be VHS, DVD, whatever it may be. So it is kind of fading away. Most of the movies you cannot get to. There are more movies. There's only like 30-something, 40,000 movies that are being streamed right now. So that it's kind of they're dying. You're losing out. We think everything's streamed, but it's not. But so there's that side of movies and TV, but also just like fun stuff, the favorite scenes, the ages as you were growing up. What were you watching? What was influencing you? What were the lines from movies that you used all the time? Because you talked about Disclosure Day, and I went and saw it, and you know what I felt? I felt a little nostalgic. Kind of felt like an old time. I went to see an old movie. You know, the same old feeling like going to Showcase Cinemas when you had to walk outside to get to the theaters. It's that same kind of feeling. That nostalgia was awesome. And I will say this, I just watched 2001 Space Odyssey not too long ago, and that holds up like a champ. It's amazing effects.
Oh my gosh, it's so slow though, Chris.
It is. It is
like 17 minutes and nothing is said. The first 17 minutes.
That might have taken me about 2 minutes to fast forward through. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not doing that. And I didn't partake in the intermission. I'm good. Let's go on. But so movies and TVs, from just the whole streaming thing and what's missing. And if that's an art form, you know, we would, if they threw that many books out because they weren't an audio book, wow, that would be something. Is it any different to lose the history of movies? So, and also fun stuff. So many quotes from movies. So number 3, movies and TV. And number 4, now this one's like, it's just basically, I summed it up to greed, GREED. You know, you guys were talking about housing, and I'm like, yeah, you cannot afford a house right now. The interest rates are crazy. Ever since COVID, the prices of homes have just gone through the roof. It's just ridiculous. Even when I look at the value of my house compared to now to 5 or 6 years ago, that's not real. That's not healthy. It's not good for people like our younger kids that are going to try to get a mortgage at 6.5% when $180,000 house now is $300,000.
And the other side of that is, you know, people can't get into houses, so apartment rent is going up at crazy rates.
Through the roof.
Just because they know they can.
But, you know, Scott also talked about making money. I mean, that's legit is a job, you know, and the shrinkflation. Think about going to the grocery store and you buy that bag of Doritos. Now there's 8.5 ounces instead of 14 ounces, but they give you the price you want. That's greed. Medical stuff. We've been through some medical stuff here in my house over the last few years, and I can tell you, it'll make you sick because nothing makes sense. The prices they charge on things to companies, it's such a greedy game. And it almost seems like to me that greed is probably the number one motivation for this world overall, for people, but especially for companies. And the wealth gap that we have right now is revolutionary type of wealth gap. So greed would be an interesting topic. Be deep, it'd be heavy. So good topics. You guys this was a really good podcast to listen to. So let me go back through them. Teaching, AI, and education, the teaching and the learning aspect, not just for the teachers, but also for the kids, is going to change their brain. 2, the information debate. Man, that's a good one. Number 3, TVs and movies. All aspects of TVs and movies, from is streaming a good thing? Or are movies really just disappearing from the art, from the capsule? And the last one, greed, from shrinkflation to the wealth gap to making money. 4 topics right there, guys. Yeah. Easy to talk about.
Man, these are good ones.
I don't know.
So let me ask you this.
What do you think, Brad?
I'm wondering if we should lighten it up for a week again.
Okay.
And maybe go with movies and TV. But I tell you, I really like greed and information debate too. And I love AI and education because I think we could talk education forever. And I think we all agree that schools have to make a fundamental change. But I don't know. They're all good. I don't know.
See, I
didn't help much.
I honestly don't even know. I don't even know what I would talk about in AI and education. I'm 4 years. I'm 4 years out of education as a profession. I mean, I still tutor, but that's as anti-AI as it can be. I mean, it's funny. I will say this: I was tutoring in organic chemistry, which is a pretty tough class, and I was struggling with this one problem, and the student was like, "Let's ask ChatGPT." I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah," and she just typed out the like it was a
you didn't scold
messy
her, did
organic reaction. No, I didn't scold her. I said, "So what does it say?" And she told me, and I was like, "Yeah." And then she said, "But why does it say that?" And I thought, that's the part you're not going to get that. I mean, I'm not saying ChatGPT won't eventually get you there, but what it said didn't help her understand organic chemistry.
Yeah.
It answered that problem, but didn't talk
There's
about
not a lot of answers.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of answers. It's kind of like the internet 25, 30 years ago. Hey, it's here. It's coming. Yeah. It's going to affect how we teach and what we do. But what about that? I sent a podcast to, I don't want to tell her name. I'll say Vicky, Vicky Beckersaff. And it was just on AI because we go back and forth. She hates it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's here. And it really didn't prove my case or her case. It's just hey, it's coming and it's here. It's interesting. I don't think that would be our best, most cool podcast to do next week, but
I like movies and TV and greed. That's my top 2. Movies and TV.
Yeah, those are my top 2.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I don't know what. I feel like with TV, the movies and TV, we need to narrow it down a little bit. To what do we want to? Do we want to talk about the?
Are you going to go the route of
Is it an art that needs to be protected, preserved, or the idea of is there value in the nostalgia of art?
Why don't you bring in? Do you want to go with that one? If we go with that one, why don't you bring in your point of view or your angle on movies and TV, and I'll bring in my angle, and we'll just talk about it.
Okay.
Yep. And I think there's no reason you couldn't do both in the same episode.
So the idea of the value in the art.
Well, here you go. How about this? You want to try to watch like a movie like Sling Blade? You better have the DVD because you can't stream it anywhere. So it's not these movies that are obscure and nobody's heard of. There's a lot of movies that we just accepted to forget about.
I actually quoted that to my kids yesterday, so they're not going to be able to find it to watch it.
Nope, they better have the DVD. I have to borrow it from Travis Burton. He has it on VHS, DVD, Laserdisc.
I said something to my son. He said something. And he's like, I don't know. I just feel that way. I was like, well, you're just a weird little shit.
Let me make you some French fried taters.
I studied up on it.
What if we just did the whole
I don't know
podcast?
about killing no man, but I studied up on it.
You do the whole podcast and Sling Blade. Carl, you're Carl the whole time, Scott. I like movies.
I do like movies.
All right, we're going with movies.
See stuff like that.
I like my popcorn. I like put mustard on it, though.
We're going with movies and TV.
Yeah.
And you bring in the approach or angle you want to take, and I'll bring
that sounds
in one.
good. We'll figure out where we go.
Movies and TV.
Fun podcast.
Yeah, it will be. One thing I wanted to mention that never came up: the idea of generational, of labeling generations, is pretty much a U.S. only thing.
Oh, cool.
It's not maybe a little bit of Western Europe, but mostly U.S. only. I thought it was really fascinating.
Yeah.
Marketing drives it.
Yeah. Anyway, meant to throw that in earlier and I forgot to. You know what's funny? We should do that. I don't know if we should, but I don't know if you guys do this, like on like Thursday. I'm like, oh, I should have talked about this thing when I'm reflecting or watching the podcast again.
Yeah.
But anyway, so all right, whatever. All right, so movies and TV next should be good for next week.
All right, we'll see you guys next week with movies and TV.
All right, sounds fun. Thanks for listening, y'all.